The Girl Who Vanished on Hawk Ridge Road. A psychological mystery/disappearance case. Part 1, The Night the World Misplaced Her. 1. The Last Call. At exactly 11:42 p.m. on a cold October Thursday, Emily Carter received a call from her younger sister, Hannah. A call that lasted only 18 seconds. 18 seconds that upended her entire life. Emily was in her small Chicago apartment, finishing up a late-night grading session. She taught abnormal psychology at Columbia Ridge Community College, when the phone buzzed beside her half-empty coffee mug. Hannah. You home? I think someone's following me. Emily's chair scraped loudly against the wooden floor as she stood. Hannah? Where are you? What's happening? Wind rushed through the phone, followed by Hannah's shaky breath. Hannah. I'm on Hawk Ridge Road. My car died. I think someone. A crackling sound. Muffled movement. A faint thud. Hannah! Emily shouted. The line stayed open. Another breath. A whisper almost too soft to hear. Don't let them. Then the call cut out completely. No goodbye. No scream. Just, gone. Emily stared at her phone screen, heart pounding. The call timer read 0:18. And that was the last time anyone heard Hannah Carter's voice. 2. A road no one uses after dark. 30 minutes later, Emily was behind the wheel of her aging Subaru, hair still damp from rushing out the shower, hands ice cold around the steering wheel. Her GPS mapped the route. Hawk Ridge Road. A long, wooded stretch just outside the city, running past old farms and a shut-down wildlife preserve. Locals called it, the road that forgets you. Every town had a place like it. The one people avoided after sunset. But Hannah wasn't from here. She'd just moved to Chicago 3 months ago for her job. She wouldn't have known. The drive took 22 agonizing minutes. When Emily turned onto Hawk Ridge, darkness swallowed her headlights like a mouth closing around a matchstick. No streetlights. No houses. Just the long, winding road disappearing into tree-lined shadows. She rolled down her window. Hannah. Her voice echoed and died somewhere in the woods. She drove slow, scanning both sides. Her sister's silver Toyota Corolla should have been easy to spot. But halfway down the road, she found something else instead. The road's edge was torn. Fresh skid marks. Cutting across gravel. And dragging into the trees. Emily slammed the brakes and jumped out. Flashlight shaking, she approached the tree lean. There. Half hidden behind brush and branches. Hannah's car. The front end was smashed against an old oak, driver's door wide open. But no Hannah. Emily's throat tightened. Hannah? Hannah. Nothing. Just the quiet hum of night and a distant owl. 3. The first wrong detail. Emily climbed into the car, heart racing as she scanned the front seat. Airbag deployed. Driver's seatbelt unbuckled. Hannah's purse still there. Phone missing. But something immediately stood out to Emily. The dashboard clock was frozen at 11:17 p.m. That was 25 minutes before the call. And Hannah had said she was being followed. Emily's eyes narrowed. Accident first. Call later? Impossible. Unless Hannah wasn't in the car when she called. Unless the call didn't come from here. Her gaze drifted toward the dark woods, chills prickling. Something wasn't adding up. 4. The shadow in the trees. Emily stepped outside and swept her flashlight across the woods. Branches shifted. Leaves rustled. Footsteps. "Hannah," she whispered. Silence. Then the beam caught on something. A faint shape between the trees. A figure. Someone tall. Standing still. Facing her. Emily froze. "Hello? Do you need help?" she called out. The figure didn't move. Didn't respond. The beam flickered like the flashlight itself wanted to look away. Emily's breath caught. The figure stepped back. Slowly. And vanished between the trees without a sound. Her entire body shivered. Someone had been here. Someone was still here. She backed toward the road, pulling out her phone. 911. "Please state the nature of your emergency." Emily's voice broke. "My sister's car crashed on Hawk Ridge Road. She's missing." The operator paused. "Hawk Ridge, ma'am, are you sure? That road's been closed for months due to..." But Emily cut her off. "I'm looking at her car right now." Another pause. "We have no record of any recent accidents in that area." Emily clenched her jaw. "Well, there is one now." 5. When the police arrived. 2 patrol cars arrived 18 minutes later. Flashing lights turning the woods red and blue. Officer Martinez, mid-40s, practical, steady-eyed, walked over. "You the one who called?" "Yes. I'm Emily Carter. My sister Hannah called me tonight. She said someone was following her, then the call cut off. This is her car." Martinez examined the vehicle. "Looks like it swerved off. But there's no sign of blood. And the seatbelt's undone. Are you sure she didn't walk away to find help?" Emily glared. Hannah would never leave her purse. Or her coat. And someone was out here, I saw them. Martinez exchanged a glance with the other officer. "Well, we'll search the area, but we've had incidents on this road. People hear things. See things." Emily stiffened. "What does that mean?" "Isolation, poor visibility, animals, your mind fills gaps." Emily stepped closer, voice sharp. "I teach psychology. I understand the human brain. I'm not mistaken." Another officer shouted from deeper in the woods. "Over here." Emily and Martinez rushed over. The tall officer pointed his flashlight down. There, in the mud. Leading away from the crash scene. A set of footprints. Small. Light. Hannah's size. But next to them, larger prints. Heavy. Deep. Emily's stomach dropped. "What kind of animal is that?" she whispered. The officer swallowed. "Those aren't animal tracks." They followed the trail another 30 yards before it suddenly, abruptly, stopped. No exit path. No drag marks. No more prints. Just ended. Like the forest floor had swallowed them. Martinez muttered something under his breath. "Not again." Emily snapped her head toward him. "Not again." "What do you mean, not again?" Martinez's face tightened. But before he could answer, the radios crackled. "Officer Martinez, we found something else." They hurried back toward the road. The younger officer held up a phone in a plastic bag. Hannah's phone. Screen cracked. Battery dead. Emily reached instinctively, but the officer stopped her. "Ma'am, please, this is evidence," Martinez asked quietly. "Where'd you find it?" The officer pointed across the road. "On the opposite side of the crash. Half buried in the dirt." Emily frowned. That made no sense. Unless Hannah had been running away from the woods, away from whoever was following her. Martinez turned to Emily. "You said the call came at 11:42? "Yes." He held up the phone. "This phone's last known location pinged at 11:51 p.m. 5 miles from here." Emily felt her blood run cold. "That's impossible. She told me she was on this road." Martinez exhaled. "Ma'am, I don't know how to tell you this." Emily stared at him, breath trembling. "What?" Martinez held up the phone's cracked screen. "That call you received didn't come from this phone." Emily's vision swayed. What are you talking about?" Martinez lowered his voice, careful. "The call was spoofed. Meaning, someone pretended to be using your sister's number. But the device wasn't hers." Emily stepped back, dizzy. "But I heard her voice." Martinez looked at her with something between pity and dread. "We don't know whose voice you heard," Emily whispered. "No. She said my name. She sounded scared." "That was Hannah." Martinez took a slow breath. "Emily, we've had disappearances on this road for years. And every one of them starts with a phone call that doesn't make sense." Emily froze. "What do you mean?" Before Martinez could answer, a scream echoed from the woods. A woman's scream. The officers snapped their heads toward the sound. Emily's blood turned to ice. "That's Hannah." Martinez grabbed her arm as she tried to run. "Emily, stop." But the scream cut off abruptly. Dead silence. Martinez shouted orders, officers sprinting into the trees. Emily tried to follow, but Martinez held her back. "Stay behind me." Emily didn't listen. She broke free, sprinting into the woods after the sound. Branches whipped her arms. Mud splashed her jeans. Her breath tore through her lungs. She ran until the ground turned soft beneath her shoes. A clearing. Moonlight spilling over an old wooden hunting blind, half collapsed. Then she saw it. Her entire body went cold. On the wooden planks, scratched into the surface with something sharp, were 4 desperate words. "Don't let them find me." And beneath it, a final message, scrawled in the same handwriting. "Emily, please run." Emily's knees buckled. Hannah hadn't been calling for help. She'd been leaving last words. And whatever had taken her, whatever had followed her, wasn't done yet. Emily stood slowly, breath trembling. Because behind her, branches cracked softly. Someone else was in the clearing, watching her. And she knew, without turning, she wasn't alone. End of Part 1. Part 2, The Notes That Don't Add Up. 1. Hannah's room. The next morning Emily stood in Hannah's small one-bedroom apartment like a visitor at an accident scene. Everything was in place, but the meaning had gone missing. Dishes stacked in the sink. Makeup sat in a neat row. A bookshelf of paperbacks and a single succulent that had been watered yesterday. She began where you always begin with someone who disappears, with the things they left behind. Hannah's laptop sat open on the kitchen table. The login screen required a password. Emily's hands hovered above the keys as if the machine itself might bite. She had no right to pry, but urgency had a way of feeling like permission. Her sister's phone, the one the officers had bagged, was already at the station. Emily opened a small desk drawer and found a composition notebook, its spiral spine bent. On the cover, in Hannah's looping handwriting, was a single phrase, Hawk Ridge Notes. Her thumb trembled as she flipped the pages. They were not coherent at first, a grocery list, a quote clipped from an article, a doodle of a fox. Then the entries sharpened. Dates. Times. Names. A pattern emerged, someone watching. Someone who left messages in silence. One entry read, neat and small. October 9th, parked near the preserve. Saw tire track. Man in green jacket. He glanced. Felt wrong. Another, in larger letters. October 12th, phone keeps ringing at 2:14 a.m. I don't pick up. It's the number I don't want to call back. Emily's fingers traced the ink as if she could pull out a voice. Her stomach curled. 2:14 a.m. The boy's knock in the other story. A time that had already lodged in her head like a tooth that must be pulled. A folded scrap of paper slipped from the last page. Emily opened it. 4 words, in Hannah's hurried scrawl. If I vanish, check the lake. Underneath, in different ink, someone had added, don't trust the phone. Emily felt a cold certainty bloom. Hannah had been tracking something. Or someone. And she'd left clues, small, frightened breadcrumbs, knowing the corridor she walked might collapse under her feet. 2. The interrogation. Detective Claire Anders was not the sort to be undone by tears. She had a face shaped by nights of bad coffee and paperwork, and a voice that could be calming or cutting depending on how you needed it to be. Emily sat across from her in a windowless conference room at the precinct. The fluorescent light hummed. On the table lay Hannah's journal, in a plastic evidence sleeve. You told us there was a call. You said she said someone was following her. Then the call cut out. Anders tilted her pen, watching Emily with the efficiency of someone taking stock of a market. I know what I heard, Emily said. She said someone was following her on Hawk Ridge. She said don't let them, and then the line went dead. And yet your sister's phone pinged at 11:51, 5 miles away. Emily felt the words again like a physical blow. Her call could have been spoofed. Somebody could have used her number. And yet you recognized the voice. Anders folded her hands. You teach psychology. You know how memory works. Stress alters perception. You've read about auditory pattern recognition. Emily's jaw tightened. Are you accusing me of lying? No, Anders sat forward. I'm asking whether you might have mistaken noise for meaning. We have a lot of missing persons calls that begin with certainty and end with speculation. Emily swallowed. I heard my sister. I heard her say my name. Detective Anders let the silence do some work. Then she said, we found Hannah's phone across the road. Her car was here. There were 2 sets of footprints. One stopped abruptly. And, she hesitated, eyes on the file, we've had similar cases before. Not many. But enough to look at patterns. Patterns of what? Emily's voice thinned. Anders named it quietly, as if the words themselves might encourage the thing to emerge. People who walk away. Walked into woods, up to a certain clearing. Then gone. No traces. No explanation. Sometimes a message scratched into wood. Sometimes a phone pinged far away. We call it the Hawk Ridge pattern. The room felt smaller. I went into the woods last night, Emily said. I saw someone. A tall figure. They stepped back and walked away. And you didn't take a picture? Anders asked. I couldn't. Emily's voice wavered. They were gone. Anders set her pen down. We'll run forensics, get the phone's call logs analyzed. But I have to warn you, these cases often take on a life of their own. Rumor, grief, and pattern seeking. They feed each other. Don't get lost in it. Emily wanted to hurl the notebook on the table and shout that she was already lost. Instead she listened, acrid and helpless. 3. The other missing. At the station, a deputy slid a manila folder across the desk. Photographs fanned, faces of people who had vanished from Hawk Ridge in the last decade. Under one of them was a note, 2016, Daniel Hayes, 27, last seen at Hawk Ridge. Phone call at 2:13 a.m. claimed he was being followed. Car found intact. No trace. The timestamps clustered in a slow, terrible rhythm, 2:12, 2:14, 2:13. Not all the same minute, but a tight band of night when the world thinned. Emily traced a finger over Daniel's photograph. He looked like a person who had been designing his life and then stepped off the plan. A barista, a part-time landscape worker. Ordinary. What connects them? Emily asked. Nothing we can put our finger on, the deputy said. But friends report the same, calls, strange lights, and then, disappearance. Sometimes the victim disappears from a car, sometimes from a campground. Always at night. Always near Hawk Ridge. Emily felt the hair at the back of her neck lift. Patterns are comforting until they become traps that pull you down. Has anyone ever come back? She asked. No, the deputy's answer was hollow. Not one. 4. The tale. That night Emily moved with the hyper-awareness of someone teaching themselves to breathe in new ways. She installed a small camera on her porch and drove to Hawk Ridge with a thermos of coffee and a determination that felt brittle. Why had Hannah called her and said the road when her phone pinged elsewhere? Who had spoofed the call? And why did the footprints end like a sentence cut short? She parked half a mile from the crash site and walked in, flashlight beam ahead. The world smelled of damp leaves and old resin. The trail of prints was still visible to someone who looked, Hannah's lighter treads and the deeper, wider impressions beside them. At one point Emily caught the flash of reflective material ahead, someone's jacket. She froze. Her breath zeroed into a single panicked rhythm. A man stepped into view, mid-30s, a baseball cap pulled low. He said nothing at first. He watched. His eyes were too calm. You following me? Emily asked before she could stop herself. He shrugged. You're the one people are talking about. The sister who runs into the woods. Who are you? She demanded. He didn't offer a name. Name's not important. We've watched. Folks around here watch. Emily's eyebrows rose. You said you watch. For who? He tilted his head at the trees. For the road. You mean the road that forgets? People call it that. I call it a place that pays attention to certain things. Emily felt anger like a burn. Do you know where Hannah is? He looked at her then, and for the first time his face carried something like pity. People go where the road tells them to go, he said. Sometimes they come back. Mostly they don't. Are you saying the road chooses? He laughed, a short, humorless sound. I'm saying old places remember what happened in them. Some of us listen. Some of us leave well enough alone. You should leave well enough alone, Miss Carter. Emily set her jaw. I won't. He took a step back then, slowly, as if stepping away from a live wire. You asked for a warning. Consider it given. He turned and slipped into the trees like a shadow folding. Emily stood there with the flashlight tip trembling in her hand. She wanted to chase him, to drag him back to demand answers. Instead she held her ground and let the thing she had seen harden into resolve. Someone, somewhere, had been watching Hannah. Someone had followed her, left a carved note, sent a call that didn't match the phone, and disappeared. The woods had offered up no human explanation that night, only a set of coincidences and a stranger who watched like a sentinel. 5. The memory hole. When Emily returned to her car, she checked the footage from the small camera she'd placed on her porch hours earlier. The timestamp flicked across the screen. For 3 minutes, the feed showed her step out of the car, the camera's grainy eye capturing her hair in the wind, the flashlight like a beacon slashing through the nocturne. At 12:03 a.m. the feed showed nothing for 30 seconds. Then, Emily walking again, the camera capturing her returning. Her breath caught as she watched the footage in real time, then rewound. There was a gap, half a minute where she was either not visible, or the camera had failed. She hadn't noticed it in the dark. Now the missing segment felt like a clean cut wound in time. She replayed it. Static. A shadow moving. And then, herself, suddenly in frame as if she'd been transported there. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Stop digging. They don't like it. Emily's hands shook. She typed back before thinking, who is this? The reply, you know. She didn't know. And yet a new paranoia settled like dust. If the call was spoofed, if footprints could vanish, if someone could watch from the trees and step away like a ghost, what else could be unreliable? Sense. Memory. The timeline of her own life. She sat in the driver's seat until dawn with the engine off, replaying the day's facts like a film strip that might yield a clue if watched enough times. The notebook's pages seemed to pulse in her mind. If I vanish, check the lake. Don't trust the phone. 2:14 a.m. She made a list on the back of an envelope and wrote, in block letters so she could not misread it later. Forensics on Hannah's car and phone logs. Identify spoofed call origin. Interview Daniel Hayes contacts. Check the lake. Find the man in the cap. When she closed the notebook, her reflection in the windshield looked like the person who had been bumped awake in the night and told a single, terrible truth. The world had shifted, and she needed to hold the edges. End of Part 2. Part 3, The Forensics That Lie. 1. The Little Things Forensics Notices. 2 days after Hannah's disappearance, Emily spent the morning hovering in a sterile glass room at the county forensics lab while technicians in blue gloves examined the wrecked Corolla. She watched the car like a scavenger studies a carcass, every torn fabric, every snapped wire, its wounds telling a story someone might refuse to hear. Technician Ruiz, quiet and efficient, pulled the airbag cover aside. No blood here, Miss Carter, he said. No major blunt trauma indicated. That tells us either she bailed before impact, or someone staged the crash. Emily's stomach tightened. Staged? Why? Ruiz tapped the wheel where a faint smudge remained. Look. He cupped the smear in his gloved finger as if holding something delicate. Print smudged. Might belong to your sister. But there's also a residue. He frowned and called another tech over. The lab smelled of solvent and bleach. A swirling pattern on the dashboard caught a fluorescence under a special lamp. Not typical, Ruiz said. This polymer glows. Synthetic oils and some adhesives do that. Could be from a winching strap, but that would mean the car was positioned after the fact. Emily felt the room sway. So someone moved it? Possibly. Ruiz closed the evidence bag with a small white zip tie. We'll run DNA on anything we find. The phone's already being processed for location and call metadata. Call spoofing? Lab can only show us the originating device's tower pings, not always the person, but we'll get what we can. Emily left clutching a paper cup of terrible coffee and a document listing tests pending. Each line on that sheet felt like a small hope, results that might either confirm her worst fear or reveal an explanation she could live with. She walked through the precinct like someone who'd had the rug pulled from under her, aware of every step now, as if the ground might open again. 2. The witness who changed his story. 2 days later, Detective Anders called Emily in. We spoke with a man who saw a figure near the crash, Anders said. Initially, he described a tall shadow stepping into the trees. He's since returned to modify his statement. Emily's stomach cramped. Modify? How? We recorded both statements, Anders said. She set a tablet on the table and pressed play. The man's voice was rough from a lifetime of cigarettes and county roads. First tape, I saw a silhouette. Tall. It stood looking at the car, then turned and walked away, quiet like a fox. Second tape, same man, different words. I thought I saw someone, but maybe it was the moonlight playing on tree trunks. I might have been mistaken. You know how nerves are. Emily felt hot anger stir. Why would he change it? Peer pressure? Bad memory? Anders rubbed her temple. Sometimes people fear being involved in cases with no easy outcomes. They worry being linked might bring them trouble. Hawk Ridge has superstition, people keep quiet. Emily sensed a bigger pattern. The town's stories were not passive. They shaped behavior, nudging people toward silence and retraction. The man's change turned observation into doubt, and doubt into a small conspiracy of inaction. 3. The old tape. Late that night, Emily couldn't sleep. She drove to the Historical Society on a whim, a place she rarely visited, a wood-paneled building that smelled like old glue and lemon oil. Its archivist, June Mallory, no relation, knew the county's oddities. I keep records, June said, pouring tea. People bring trinkets, cassette tapes, whatever they think might be relevant to a past misdeed. She shuffled through boxes and handed over a brittle tape labeled in faded marker, Hawk Ridge Collection, 1996. Play it, Emily said. Tape hissed. A young voice, a town meeting, people saying the road was cursed after a hunter went missing in the 70s. The recording drifted to an interview with a shrill old woman who spoke of signals in the trees and of a series of disappearances that didn't follow any rational pattern. We found tracks that ended suddenly, she said. Tracks that didn't leave the earth, as if someone stepped through a seam in the night. Emily's scalp pricked. At the very end of the tape, a man, a police officer, spoke in a lower voice, an aside, "You never solved them, June. You're better off putting a sign up and calling it a day." Then he laughed softly, as if laughter could dissolve worry. "People kept passing it off as myth," June said. "But there are records. Old missing persons forms. An elderly case in '79. She slid a photocopy across the table, a thin woman's face, listed as missing on Hawk Ridge. Emily's pulse quickened. The road wasn't accidentally forgetting people, it had a history, a scar. 4. The memory fragment. 3 nights after the crash, Emily drove again to Hawk Ridge. She'd promised herself she would not get lost in the road's pull, but the notebook's scrawled list kept her tethered. She parked under a black sky spattered with thin stars and walked. The moonlight sliced through the trees. 10 minutes in, she found Hannah's footprints again, in a place where the mud had congealed into perfect impression. She followed them deeper than before, adrenaline making her light-footed. She remembers the moment clearly up to a point, the twist of a root underfoot, the flash of a reflective jacket ahead. Then, disconcertingly, her memory breaks. She has a fragment that comes back in separate pieces later, the whisper of her own name, the sound of an owl, a thin hand pressing lightly on her shoulder, the sudden, dizzy sensation of falling into an ice-cold river. She wakes up, breathless, on the side of the road with her flashlight pointing at the sky. Her watch reads 2:19 a.m. 5 minutes. She has lost 5 minutes. Her jacket is smeared with mud up to the elbow, and her wrist bears a small scrape, new. The camera on her porch confirms it. The earlier gap in the footage now extends not only for 30 seconds but for nearly 10 minutes. At 2:08 the feed shows her stepping out. The next visible frame is 2:19, her return. The tape shows nothing in between. It is a hole carved into the night. She phones Detective Anders in a shaking whisper. I blacked out. I don't know what happened." Anders is calm but firm. "We're increasing patrols. You should stay with someone. Don't go out alone." Emily thinks of the man with the cap, the stray witness who changed his story, and the old tape's archive of other people lost to the road's myth. The holes in her memory feel like an invitation, someone's way of erasing her footsteps. 5. The town rumor. At a diner over more coffee than she should have, Emily met a woman named Lorna who ran a B&B and knew the town's gossip as surely as she knew every guest's breakfast preference. "You want to know why Hawk Ridge eats people?" Lorna said, pouring syrup exactly so. Her voice had the blunt warmth of someone who guarded others. Emily nodded. Lorna tapped the table twice. There was a family that ran a small factory near the reserve in the late '60s. Strange accidents there, men slipping from scaffolds, tools disappearing, a foreman found wandering like he'd lost his name. They called it bad wiring, bad luck. But kids said something followed them home. Years later, kids started vanishing at night when they camped near the ridge. People blamed coyotes until a dog refused to go near the trees. Then old Mr. Greeley carved a sign, "Don't go after dark." It wasn't a joke. Emily asked, "What did Mr. Greeley believe?" "He said a place keeps score," Lorna said. "It remembers. It takes what belongs to its history. Folks it thinks should be part of the story." Emily's breath hitched. "So it's not random?" "No," Lorna's eyes were sharp. "It collects. It waits for patterns to finish. People who fit the missing shapes, those who look like they might belong to the story, disappear. The rest just pass through. Emily felt a cold certainty. Hannah had been cataloging those patterns, notes about tires, times, 2:14 a.m. The notebook's warnings now read like a map of a predator's logic. Hannah had not been careless. She had recognized the trap. 6. Closing the night with a decision. That night Emily sat at her kitchen counter and stared at the list she had written: the lake, the man in the cap, Daniel Hayes, spoofed calls. Each bullet point pulsed like a knot. She needed more than anecdotes. She needed a thread she could follow that wouldn't dissolve into folklore. She needed something physical, a name, a trace, a piece of DNA that would anchor the entire thing back to Earth. She resolved, with the brittle courage of someone who has lost a person and refuses idly to accept absence, to find the lake. If Hannah's note was a breadcrumb, that lake might be the crumb bucket. If the road wanted characters to fill its story, perhaps the lake held one of the missing lines. She checked her watch. It read 11:58 p.m. The number felt small and human, an anchor against the larger arithmetic of the road. She texted Anders, "I'm going to check the lake. We'll be careful." He replied, "Back up on standby. Don't go alone." She locked her apartment, the click of the deadbolt feeling unusually loud. The night closed around her as she drove again toward Hawk Ridge, the road's dark mouth opening like a question she couldn't refuse to answer. End of Part 3. Part 4, The Lake That Remembers. 1. The Road to the Lake. The lake lay 3 miles east of Hawk Ridge, tucked behind a rusting chain-link fence and a row of cedar trees the wind never seemed to move. Locals called it Blackwater Lake, though the official name was Hawthorne Reservoir. Emily parked at the gravel pull-off and killed the headlights. The silence was total, a vacuum that made her heartbeat sound like footsteps behind her. She stood at the fence, flashlight cutting into the dark. Inside, the lake was still. Glass smooth. Not a ripple. If a place could hold a secret long enough, it began to look like this, quiet, watching, waiting. Emily squeezed through a bent panel in the fence and followed a narrow path to the water's edge. Hannah's note echoed in her mind. "If I vanish, check the lake." The implication was brutal, both a warning and a plea. Emily shined her light across the surface. The beam reflected off something metallic at the far end. A sign. Bent. Barely legible under rust. No night swimming. No boats after dark. No entry after 9 p.m. Under it, scratched in with a key or knife. Not safe. Not since Daniel. Emily's breath shortened. Daniel Hayes. The missing man from 2016. And just below that, another carving, shallow, almost erased. Not since her. 1979. The year from the old historical tape. The lake wasn't just a location. It was a pattern's graveyard. 2. The woman at the dock. Emily's light tracked along the shore until it landed on a wooden dock, half swallowed by algae. As she approached, she spotted a hunched figure sitting at the end, legs dangling over the water. An old woman. Hair thin and white. Hands folded like she'd been waiting for someone. Emily stepped slow. "Ma'am? Are you all right?" The woman didn't turn. "You're the Carter girl," she said calmly. Not a question. A statement. Emily froze. "How do you know who I am?" "I knew your sister. She came here 3 times. The lake remembers those who come looking." Emily swallowed. Did you speak to her? Oh yes, the woman said softly. Same questions you have. Same fear. But she walked too close to the water. That's where the road begins. Emily's heart pounded. I need to know what she found. The woman's fingers curled around the dock edge. She found the same thing Daniel found. And the girl in 79. Then, barely audible, they all heard the same voice. Emily stepped closer. What voice? The woman finally turned. Her eyes were pale, almost clouded. The voice that calls your name from two places at once. Emily's blood iced. What does that mean? The woman's voice trembled as she whispered. It means your sister didn't just disappear. She was taken twice. 3. The object under the lake. The woman pointed a shaking finger toward the center of the lake. You see it? Emily squinted. Something pale lay beneath the water, round, smooth, unnatural. A circular concrete lid maybe 3 feet across. What is that? Emily whispered. It's been there longer than I've been alive, the woman said. Some say it's an old well cap. Others say it's where the first boy went in 1958. The first, what? The first disappearance. Her voice cracked. The lake doesn't drown people, child. It keeps them. Emily felt her lungs squeeze. You mean the bodies are still? The woman cut her off sharply. No. Not the bodies. Just the moment they vanished. Emily blinked. What? The moment they disappeared repeats itself. Plays like a scratched record. And when someone else comes along with the same fear, the same pattern, the lake calls them to finish the story. Emily stepped back. That's not real. You're describing some kind of psychic imprint or illusion. The woman smiled sadly. Child, everything is psychological until it touches you. Emily's breath fogged. But Hannah came here? Yes. And she left something for you. The woman reached into her pocket and handed Emily a small plastic bag. Inside, a bracelet. Purple beads. Hannah's initials carved on the charm. Emily's chest caved in. This is hers. She dropped it at the waterline, the woman said. I found it the next morning. Emily's voice wavered. Do you know where she went? The woman looked out at the lake as the surface trembled. Not from wind, but from something beneath. She went where the others went. For the pastor's secret tape. 3 hours later, Emily found herself inside a small church office, sitting across from Pastor Alden, a tall, gray-bearded man with the calm of someone who kept long-buried knowledge. He'd asked her to come after the old woman at the lake called him. I believe I have something you should hear, he said. He produced a cassette tape. Label: HRR Incident, 2016, Hayes. Emily's stomach dropped. You recorded Daniel Hayes? Months before he vanished, Alden said. He came to confess something unusual. He inserted the tape. A click. Hiss. Then a strained male voice, Daniel's. It's happening again. The calls. The feeling someone is behind me even when I'm alone. Emily gripped the chair arms. I saw myself walking down the road last night. Same jacket. Same shoes. Ahead of me. Like I was following myself. Emily's breath caught. And then the call came from my number. My own number. The voice said my name. I swear it sounded like me. Emily felt her whole body go cold. The voice continued, broken, terrified. Pastor, if I disappear, don't believe anything you hear about where I went. And please, please tell anyone who looks for me, the lake doesn't take you the first time. Alden paused the tape. Emily stared, numb. What does that mean? He believed Hawk Ridge produced echoes, repetitions, copies of moments before people vanished. Emily whispered. So the voice that called me, it wasn't Hannah? Alden shook his head. It might have been her. Or it might have been her displaced echo. A piece of her repeating the moment she feared the most. Emily's breaths came fast, shallow. And the second time? That, Alden said quietly, is when they are truly taken. 5. The man in the cap returns. Emily left the church shaken. Dawn hadn't yet broken, and mist clung to the street like exhausted breath. She walked toward her car, and found the man in the baseball cap leaning against her door. He wasn't surprised to see her. He wasn't nervous. He looked like he'd been waiting. Emily froze. What do you want? He stepped closer, expression unreadable. You shouldn't have gone to the lake, he said quietly. You're too close now. Too close to what? His voice dropped to a whisper. The second taking. Emily stumbled back. What are you talking about? Where is my sister? He didn't answer. Instead, he handed her a phone. Not hers, not Hannah's. An old flip phone. It buzzed in his palm, screen lighting up. One new voicemail. Received, 2:14 a.m. He pressed play. Emily's heart stopped. Hannah's voice, shaking, breathless, filled the air. Emily. It's me. I don't know where I am. I think I'm still on the road. But I can hear myself somewhere else. Please, please don't come. Static ripped the message apart. Emily dropped the phone. That's impossible, she whispered. She called me days ago, she couldn't. The man in the cap reached down, picked up the phone, and placed it in her shaking hand. This isn't old. It was recorded last night. Emily felt like the air had been pulled from the world. But how? He stepped back into the fog. You need to stop chasing her echo, he said quietly. And start chasing the person who took her. Emily's breath stilled. You mean someone real did this? A person? He nodded once. And then he said the most terrifying thing yet. Someone who knows you're coming. End of part 4. Final part, the road that takes twice. 1. The second voicemail. Emily sat inside her car gripping the old flip phone like it was a bomb. The first voicemail had nearly broken her. Then the phone buzzed again. New voicemail, 2:19 a.m. She pressed play. This time Hannah's voice was weaker, disoriented, almost echoing from a tunnel. If you hear this, I'm not dead. I don't think I am. Someone keeps moving me. I hear footsteps. I think he can hear my thoughts. He whispers the same thing over and over. Twice. Everything happens twice. A trembling inhale. He said the first time is the memory. The second time is when you stay. The message cut. Emily sat frozen, tears dripping onto her hands. Twice, she whispered. Everything happens twice. The first taking. The second taking. She had to stop the second one. 2. The timeline fracture. Emily drove back to Hawk Ridge Road at dawn, mind racing. She parked by the tree line and found something she wasn't prepared for. Her own footprints. Not from tonight. Not from before. Deep, clear, fresh. Leading into the woods. Then a second set. Parallel. Same pattern. Same shoes. 2 versions of her footsteps. Twice, she whispered. One set ended abruptly. The other continued deeper into the woods. The woods were replaying something she hadn't lived yet. Or something she had lived, but didn't remember. She followed the deeper trail until it led to a small, rotted wooden shed near the wildlife preserve. She had never seen this building before, but she knew Hannah had. Her heart hammered. 3. Inside the shed. Emily pushed open the door. The smell hit her first. Damp wood, old rope, metal. Inside. A mattress. A coil of rope. A broken radio. Piles of torn notebooks. In. Hannah's scarf tied to a beam. Emily covered her mouth, shaking. Hannah, you were here. Behind the mattress, she noticed scratch marks on the wall. Deep. Violent. Desperate. She stepped closer. And froze. Because the scratches weren't random. They were words. Written over and over. Not the echo. Not the echo. Not the echo. Emily felt her pulse spike. What does that mean? Her phone buzzed suddenly. A text from an unknown number. Turn around. Emily spun. Heart stopping. 4. The real kidnapper. The man in the baseball cap stood in the doorway. Except now she saw him clearly. Not tired. Not wandering. Not harmless. Cold. Focused. Watching her like a subject in his experiment. Emily whispered, You were following me? He smiled faintly. No. I've been leading you. Where is my sister? He walked slowly into the shed. You won't believe me at first, he said. But I'll tell you anyway. Emily backed away. He stepped closer. I took Hannah. Emily's throat closed. You? Yes, he said simply. And I took Daniel Hayes. And the others before him. Emily shook, rage rising. Why? Who are you? He spoke calmly, like explaining a science lesson. You think Hawk Ridge creates echoes. You think the lake remembers. But it's simpler. He tapped his temple. The human mind remembers better under terror. The phone calls, the echoes, the repeated events. Those weren't supernatural. He smiled. They were rehearsals. Emily felt her stomach collapse. You made the calls. Yes. Spoofed. Edited. Played back at the exact right times to create disorientation. The disappearances? Not vanishings. Abductions. But, the double footprints, the gaps in memory. Sleep deprivation, he said. Hypnotic suggestion. You lose time when your brain runs out. Emily's knees weakened. He stepped closer. I've been studying people like you and Hannah for years. People with strong emotional bonds. Sisters are the best subjects. Emily stared in horror. You're experimenting on us? He nodded. Fear. Location. Time repetition. What does the human brain do when it faces the same terror twice? Emily whispered, choking. Where is Hannah? He paused. Then stepped aside, pointing behind the shed. She's right outside. Emily bolted past him. 5. The second taking. Behind the shed, lying on the ground. Half-conscious, exhausted. Hannah. Emily collapsed beside her. Hannah. Hannah. Hannah's eyelids fluttered. You came. I told you not to. Emily hugged her tight. You're safe now. I'm getting you out of here. Then, a gun cocked behind them. The man in the cap. Emily, he said calmly. She hasn't completed the second taking yet. Emily shielded Hannah with her body. Stay away from her. He stepped closer. Hannah left once. But she hasn't relived the moment of fear yet. She hasn't heard the call again. She hasn't seen the road again. She hasn't repeated her trauma. Emily realized. He didn't want to kill them. He wanted to restart the fear. To make Hannah relive the loop. To complete the psychological experiment. Emily stood slowly, rage boiling. You're not taking her again. He raised the gun. You can't stop the second taking. Emily whispered. Yes. I can. 6. The ending. One shot, one decision. Before he could react, Emily grabbed a rusted crowbar lying near the shed door. And swung. The metal cracked against his wrist. The gun dropped. He screamed. Emily grabbed Hannah, dragging her up. Run! They ran through the trees. Hannah stumbling, Emily pulling her. Branches slicing their arms. The man recovered quickly, screaming after them. You can't break the cycle. They reached the road. Headlights swept the darkness. A sheriff's cruiser. Detective Anders jumped out. Emily! Down! Emily dropped. Anders fired. One shot. The man in the cap staggered. Fell. Dropped to the pavement. A single hole in his chest. He wasn't dead. Not yet. But he was done running. Anders rushed to Emily and Hannah. Ambulance is on the way, stay with me. Hannah collapsed into Emily's arms, sobbing. I thought I wouldn't see you again. Emily held her tighter. You're here. I've got you. You're here. 7. 1 month later. Hannah recovered slowly. Therapy. Medication. Long nights. Nightmares. But she lived. The man in the cap, real name Richard Cole, was revealed to be a former psychology graduate student, expelled 15 years earlier for unethical experiments on fear conditioning. He'd been using Hawk Ridge Road as his laboratory for years. Isolated, dark, unpredictable. He chose victims who fit his pattern. People with close emotional ties. So he could manipulate trauma in pairs. He created phone echoes, GPS illusions, staged footprints, engineered terror. The town's superstitions. He exploited them. And the missing people he took? They were found. Alive. Traumatized. But alive. Held in makeshift cells in the wildlife preserve shed. And an underground crawlspace near the lake. Hannah had been his newest subject. Emily is next. The supernatural pieces had been psychological warfare. A controlled manipulation of fear, memory, and disorientation. Hawk Ridge Road wasn't haunted. It was hunted. 8. Final note. In spring, Emily and Hannah visited the lake. Clear sky. Still water. Hannah placed her bracelet on the dock and let it slide into the lake. Goodbye, she whispered. Emily stood beside her. You're free now. Hannah nodded, tears catching in sunlight. Thank you for finding me. Emily wrapped her arm around her sister. Always. They left Hawk Ridge Road behind them. For good. But as they reached the car, Emily's phone buzzed once. A voicemail. Unknown number. Timestamp. 2:14 a.m. She stared at it and deleted it without listening. Some echoes were never meant to be heard again. The end. Have a nice day. Thank you for watching.